A young man once left his hometown with nothing but a suitcase and a dream. His friends laughed, his family doubted, but he walked on alone. Years later, that same man built an empire that changed the course of an entire industry. Another walked through the cold silence of rejection while others turned away. Yet in that silence, he found his true direction, his purpose, his voice. History remembers not the crowds that followed, but the few who had the courage to walk their own path when no one else understood. This message is for those who walk alone, for those who rise before dawn while the world still sleeps. For those who feel unseen, unheard, and yet unbroken. You see, the path of solitude is not a detour, it is the direct road to destiny. Every man or woman who ever achieved greatness first faced the long stretch of silence, the cold wind of doubt, and the loneliness of self-belief. When the noise of the crowd fades away, something remarkable happens. You begin to hear the sound of your own thoughts. That's where direction is born. It's not in applause or approval, but in those quiet hours when you ask yourself, why am I here? What am I meant to do? The person who answers that question in solitude becomes unstoppable. Most people fear walking alone because they mistake company for strength. But company often dilutes conviction. The crowd moves in circles while the individual moves forward. When you walk alone, you move with purpose. You no longer chase validation, you chase truth, and truth has a direction of its own. Remember this? Those who walk alone are not lost. They're simply walking ahead. That's the secret of the strong. They are not driven by what others think. They are driven by what they know within. If you're fighting battles no one sees, understand that silence is your forge. It's where you're being shaped. While others rest in comfort, you are being refined in challenge. Every lonely night, every unseen effort, every quiet step is preparing you for the moment when the world will finally notice what you've become. But don't rush that moment. Don't break the process by seeking shortcuts or applause. Greatness has a rhythm and it moves in silence first. You must learn to trust the steps no one sees, to love the process no one claps for, and to walk with faith even when the road ahead is dim. Solitude is not a punishment. It's the birthplace of strength. When the world grows quiet and you find yourself standing alone, understand that life has not abandoned you. It has simply invited you to discover who you truly are. Every person who ever achieved greatness knew this truth intimately. They knew that solitude is not a void to be feared, but a space to be filled with thought, reflection, and the shaping of one's inner world. It's in that sacred stillness where the weak escape and the strong begin to emerge. In our modern age, people run from silence as though it were a curse. They fill every quiet moment with noise, distraction, or company, anything to avoid facing their own thoughts. But strength is not born in the noise of the crowd, it's cultivated in the quiet of the mind. When you learn to sit alone, when you can hear your own heart without interference, that's when you begin to build a foundation that no storm can shake. Solitude reveals to you your own company, and when you can stand your own company, you become unbreakable. You see, the world rewards those who can stand alone, because independence is the truest mark of maturity. The person who depends on applause will fall the moment the world turns its back. But the one who depends on their own conviction, who has tested their ideas in silence, who has wrestled with their doubts in the stillness of the night, that person becomes a pillar of strength. Solitude demands that you meet yourself honestly. It strips away all illusion and forces you to see who you are without titles, without validation, without noise. And when you can stand firm in that naked truth, you become a person of depth, a person of substance. The great thinkers, inventors, and leaders of history all had long periods of isolation. It wasn't by chance, it was by necessity. They knew that to think clearly, they had to be apart. They knew that solitude allows the mind to expand, to create, to see connections invisible to those caught in the rush of the crowd. A mind constantly surrounded by chatter becomes shallow, reactive, unsure. But a mind accustomed to solitude becomes deep, decisive, wise. When you learn to embrace solitude, it transforms from loneliness into power. It becomes your private workshop, where ideas are refined and dreams are shaped into plans. It's where you develop self-reliance, where you learn to trust your judgment, where you begin to hear the inner voice that guides your true direction. The world may call it isolation, but those who understand know it as preparation. You are not alone because you are forgotten, you are alone because you are being built. The oak tree grows strongest when it stands alone against the wind. Its roots dig deeper, its trunk grows thicker, and it learns to endure. So it is with people. Solitude tests you, strengthens you, and prepares you for the weight of your own destiny. In the quiet hours when no one watches, when no one encourages you, and when no one seems to care, that's when your strength is being formed. The crowd follows comfort. The individual follows clarity. This single truth separates the majority from the few who rise above mediocrity. The crowd seeks warmth, reassurance, and approval. It moves not because it knows where it's going, but because it fears being left behind. The individual, however, guided by a quiet conviction, walks in a different direction, not to defy others, but to honor his own understanding of what is right. Comfort may give the illusion of safety, but it is clarity that gives the assurance of purpose. One leads to stagnation, the other to growth. In every age, the crowd has always gathered around what is easy and familiar. They find comfort and sameness in blending in never questioning. It's a seductive trap, this pursuit of comfort, because it asks for nothing but your obedience. The crowd will tell you how to live, what to believe, and when to stop dreaming. But the individual, the one who seeks clarity, steps away from that hypnotic pull. He begins to ask questions others avoid. He trades the comfort of being liked for the peace of being right with himself. Clarity doesn't arrive as a thunderbolt, it unfolds in quiet realization. It's that calm understanding that you are meant for something more, something that requires you to stand apart. Clarity is often uncomfortable because it demands honesty. It forces you to admit where you've compromised, where you've settled, and where you've followed others without thinking. Yet, in that honesty lies your freedom. Once you know what truly matters to you, you no longer need the crowd to tell you what to do. Comfort is easy to sell because it promises relief. It says, stay here, it's safe. But clarity whispers, keep going, you're not done yet. Comfort numbs your potential, clarity awakens it. The crowd will always cheer for comfort because it demands nothing of them. But those who live by clarity understand that the road ahead is often steep, often lonely, but always worthwhile. They move forward not because it's easy, but because it's right. The greatest discoveries, inventions, and revolutions came from individuals who followed clarity over comfort. They endured criticism, ridicule, and loneliness because they saw something others couldn't. The crowd saw risk, they saw truth. The crowd saw difficulty, they saw direction. And when their vision became reality, the same crowd that once doubted them followed their lead. That is the pattern of human progress. First ridicule, then resistance, then imitation. Clarity requires courage. It means choosing the harder path when the easy one lies open. It means standing still when others run in panic. It means having faith in your own perception when everyone else calls you wrong. But once clarity takes hold of your mind, comfort loses its grip forever. You can no longer go back to pretending. You can no longer find peace in conformity. You must walk your own way, guided not by the noise of the world, but by the quiet certainty within you that knows exactly where you must go. Walking alone refines your purpose. There's something about solitude that sharpens a person's vision in a way no crowd ever can. When you strip away the distractions, the comparisons, and the voices telling you who you should be, you begin to hear your own voice, soft at first, but clear and honest. That's where purpose is found, and more importantly, that's where it is refined. It's one thing to have an idea of what you want to do. It's another to walk alone with it, to test it against silence, to hold it up against your own doubts and see if it still shines. Most people never discover their true purpose because they never spend time alone long enough to question their borrowed beliefs. They live by the rhythm of others' expectations, chasing applause that fades the moment they stop performing. But when you walk alone, you are forced to confront what truly matters to you. Each step you take without company becomes a moment of discovery. You begin to separate what's real from what's temporary, what's meaningful from what's trivial. In solitude, your purpose becomes distilled, purified from the noise of the world. There's a refining fire that only solitude can ignite. When no one is there to motivate you, you must learn to fuel yourself. When no one believes in you, you must become your own source of faith. These are the quiet trials that transform purpose from an idea into a mission. It's easy to claim a dream when surrounded by encouragement, but the real test is whether you still hold that dream when the world goes silent. That's where refinement happens, not in comfort, but in isolation. Walking alone also teaches you patience. It teaches you that clarity takes time, that purpose grows through reflection, not reaction. When you are surrounded by people, your thoughts are scattered. When you walk alone, your thoughts align. You begin to notice what energizes you, what drains you, what calls you. The world becomes a mirror, reflecting not its noise, but your own understanding of who you are and what you're meant to do. And something remarkable happens along that solitary path. You stop needing validation. You stop measuring progress by the world's applause and start measuring it by your own alignment with your values. You realize that purpose is not about being impressive, it's about being authentic. You learn that walking alone is not a withdrawal from life, but a deeper engagement with it. You become deliberate with your actions, intentional with your time, and selective with your energy. Those who walk alone eventually discover that their solitude is not empty, it's rich with direction. The loneliness turns into focus, the silence turns into understanding, and the uncertainty turns into conviction. You begin to see your purpose not as something you chase, but as something you embody with every step. Each quiet moment becomes a chisel, carving away confusion until only truth remains. Walking alone doesn't change your purpose, it perfects it. Every great achievement begins with isolation. The moments that shape destinies are rarely accompanied by applause or recognition. They are born in quiet rooms, in long nights, in the stillness where one person wrestles with an idea the world is not yet ready to understand. Isolation is the workshop of greatness. It is where the mind becomes clear, where the heart becomes steadfast, and where vision begins to take form. While the world may call it loneliness, those who understand know it as preparation. In the early stages of any great pursuit, there is a separation that must occur. You must step away from the familiar, from the comforting embrace of the crowd, and walk into the unknown. It feels uncomfortable because it's supposed to. Growth demands distance from distraction. When you are isolated, you are stripped of external influence. You no longer live by the momentum of others, you live by the rhythm of your own conviction. The world may not understand your silence, but in that silence, you begin to hear the voice of your purpose. Consider the inventors, the philosophers, the leaders who changed the course of history. Each of them knew the weight of solitude. Before the discovery came frustration, before the brilliance came doubt. Yet they endured it because they understood that isolation is not a punishment. It is the crucible where ideas are tested and strengthened. When you are alone, there is no one to carry you, no one to reassure you, no one to tell you you're right. You must rely on your own inner compass, your own persistence, your own faith. That is where true achievement begins. Isolation refines you. It strips away the unnecessary and leaves only the essential. It forces you to examine what you truly want and whether you have the strength to pursue it. It is in isolation that you face yourself, the most important and most challenging encounter of all. The person who learns to thrive in isolation gains something rare: self-mastery. They become calm under pressure, patient in uncertainty, and confident without validation. The reason so few achieve greatness is that so few are willing to endure isolation. They mistake solitude for abandonment, quiet for insignificance, and stillness for stagnation. But those who endure it learn that isolation is the period before transformation. It's the seed buried in darkness before it breaks the surface. It's the artist sketching drafts no one will ever see, the writer rewriting words the world may never read, the dreamer holding faith in something invisible. These are not wasted efforts. They are the roots of greatness growing in secret. If you find yourself alone on your journey, do not despair. The silence you feel is not emptiness, it is creation. You are in the same space where every visionary once stood, uncertain yet determined. Every great achievement begins in that quiet, unseen place where belief outlasts doubt, and where isolation becomes the birthplace of something extraordinary. Noise blinds direction, silence reveals it. The world today hums with constant distraction, voices pulling in every direction, each one promising the path to success, happiness, and fulfillment. Yet, the louder the world becomes, the harder it is to hear the one voice that truly matters, your own. Noise confuses the mind, scatters thought, and clouds purpose. Silence, on the other hand, clears the fog. It is in moments of stillness that you rediscover what you were meant to do. Every man or woman who has ever achieved clarity has first learned to be still, not idle but quiet within. Silence is not merely the absence of sound, it is the presence of awareness. It allows you to listen not with your ears but with your mind. The crowd rushes, speaks, reacts, the wise pause, think, and understand. The person who learns to be calm amid the noise gains an advantage that no amount of talent or opportunity can replace, the ability to see clearly when others are blind with distraction. Noise blinds direction because it feeds confusion. Every voice you listen to carries a piece of its speaker's uncertainty. If you listen long enough, you begin to lose track of your own reasoning. You become reactive, following trends, opinions, and advice that have nothing to do with your own path. In such a state, even the strongest mind begins to wander aimlessly. But when you step back into silence, when you remove yourself from the constant motion of the world, your thoughts begin to settle like dust in still air. Suddenly, what once seemed unclear takes shape. In silence, truth whispers. You begin to notice what energizes you and what drains you, what aligns with your values and what pulls you away from them. You start to realize that most of what once felt urgent was never truly important. Silence refines judgment. It slows the pace of reaction and replaces it with thoughtful direction. The most successful people are not those who move fastest, but those who move with purpose, and purpose can only be found in silence. When you seek silence, you take control of your attention. And attention is the steering wheel of your destiny. Where your attention goes, your life follows. That is why it is vital to withdraw often, to step away from the screens, the conversations, the endless opinions, and return to the quiet spaces where thought is born. There you can realign with your deepest intentions, reset your direction, and strengthen your sense of purpose. Many fear silence because it forces them to confront themselves. Yet that confrontation is the beginning of wisdom. The person who makes peace with silence no longer needs the world's noise to feel alive. They walk calmly and confidently, guided not by external voices but by inner clarity. In a world that runs endlessly toward more, they choose to pause, and in doing so, they find the direction everyone else is too distracted to see. True confidence is built in moments no one sees. It is not the product of applause, approval, or recognition. It is forged quietly, in private struggles, in unseen effort, in the long hours when no one is watching and no one is praising. Confidence does not come from what the world gives you. It comes from what you give yourself through discipline, consistency, and perseverance. The foundation of self-assurance is laid in solitude. When you keep your word to yourself, when you do what you said you would do even when there is no audience. Most people misunderstand confidence. They believe it's loud, flamboyant, something you wear like a badge. But real confidence is silent, composed, and deeply rooted. It doesn't need to announce itself because it already knows its worth. It's the quiet steadiness in your voice when you speak truth, the calm persistence with which you pursue your goals, the unshakable presence you carry even when faced with uncertainty. Such confidence cannot be faked, and it cannot be borrowed. It can only be earned through consistent effort that no one applauds. When you're alone, facing challenges that no one understands, when your doubts whisper louder than your dreams, that's where confidence begins to grow. Each time you overcome hesitation, each time you act despite fear, each time you endure without complaint, you build another layer of inner strength. It's an invisible process, but it transforms you. You may not notice it happening, but one day, you'll face something that once terrified you, and you'll realize you are no longer the same. That is the quiet miracle of self-trust. Confidence is not about never failing. It's about knowing that failure cannot break you. It's about understanding that the power to begin again is always yours. The person who learns to rely on their own effort, their own preparation, and their own belief becomes untouchable by circumstance. The world may doubt them, but they no longer doubt themselves. That's the difference between those who wait for approval and those who move with purpose. It takes courage to build confidence in silence because the rewards are delayed. You work without recognition, you sacrifice without validation, and you endure without comfort. But that's precisely what makes the result so strong. Like a tree with deep roots, true confidence grows underground long before it's visible above the surface. By the time the world sees it, it's already unshakable. When you learn to trust yourself completely, the opinions of others lose their hold. You stop seeking reassurance and begin giving it. You no longer depend on applause to feel capable, because your confidence is built on evidence. The evidence of every small victory earned in solitude. That is the kind of confidence that carries you through failure, through doubt, through life itself. It's not loud, but it's lasting. It's not seen, but it's undeniable. The one who endures solitude learns self-mastery. There is no teacher more honest, no mirror more revealing, and no test more defining than being alone with yourself. Solitude strips away every disguise you wear for the world. It leaves you face to face with your thoughts, your fears, and your unspoken desires. Many people run from it because it demands truth, and truth is rarely comfortable. But those who stay, who sit with the quiet long enough to listen, discover something extraordinary. They learn control over the one thing that determines everything else themselves. Self-mastery does not come from books or advice. It comes from experience, specifically from the kind of experiences that force you to depend on your own discipline, your own decisions, and your own persistence. When you are alone, there is no one to blame, no one to lean on, no one to distract you from the reality of who you are. You begin to see your patterns, your weaknesses, your impulses. And if you're wise, you don't run from them, you confront them. You begin the long process of mastering them. That is where power is born, not in controlling others, but in mastering your own reactions. In solitude, you discover the strength of restraint. You learn that you don't have to answer every doubt, chase every desire, or indulge every emotion. You begin to see that mastery is not about dominance, but balance. It's the quiet understanding that you can feel fear and still act, feel anger and still remain calm, feel temptation and still choose discipline. That's the kind of strength solitude teaches. It doesn't make you harder, it makes you deeper. Most people never experience this level of growth because they never allow themselves to be alone long enough to learn it. They fill every silence with noise, every moment of stillness with distraction. But when you choose solitude intentionally, it becomes your training ground. It tests your patience, your focus, your resolve. It reveals where you are weak and gives you the chance to strengthen it. Every hour spent alone in reflection is an hour sharpening the mind and steadying the spirit. Self-mastery is the quiet victory that precedes all others. When you can command your thoughts, when you can remain centered regardless of circumstance, you hold the kind of power that cannot be taken from you. The person who has mastered themselves walks through life with calm assurance. They are not easily shaken because they are not controlled by emotion or external forces. They have learned that the true battle is always inward, and once that battle is won, the outer world follows. To endure solitude is to learn the rhythm of your own nature. It is to observe without judgment, to listen without interruption, and to grow without audience. In that sacred space between thought and silence, you meet the person you are meant to become. And once you meet that person, you can never again be ruled by the chaos around you. Progress often means walking away from the familiar. It requires leaving behind the comfort of what is known, stepping into uncertainty, and trusting that growth lies on the other side of discomfort. Most people resist this truth because familiarity feels safe. It offers the illusion of control, the reassurance of predictability. But no one ever grew by standing still. The price of progress is separation from old habits, old surroundings, and often old versions of ourselves. The familiar keeps us comfortable, but it also keeps us small. The unknown tests us, stretches us, and calls us to become more than we were. There comes a moment in every person's life when the path forward no longer looks like the path behind. It's a quiet realization that what once served you has now become too small for who you're becoming. Maybe it's a job that no longer challenges you, a circle of friends who no longer inspire you, or a routine that feels lifeless and dull. That's life's way of telling you it's time to move, and though the first step away may feel lonely, it's also the first step toward expansion. Growth doesn't ask for permission, it demands movement. The familiar can be comforting, but comfort can become a cage. The mind, when left unchallenged, begins to shrink. It loses its sharpness, its hunger, its curiosity. Progress is born the moment you choose to walk into unfamiliar territory, to let go of what you've outgrown, and to trust yourself enough to move forward without guarantees. The pioneers, the thinkers, the creators, all shared this common trait: they were willing to walk away, not because they despised the past, but because they understood that clinging to it would cost them the future. Walking away is not rejection. It is evolution. It is the natural law of growth at work. The seed must break from the soil before it can become a tree. The caterpillar must leave its old form before it can fly. The person who wants to progress must be willing to shed what no longer fits. This process is not comfortable, nor is it meant to be. It is meant to awaken courage, to refine conviction, to strengthen character. The familiar offers comfort, but progress offers purpose. The two rarely coexist. There will be moments of doubt, moments when you long to return to what was easy and predictable. But that longing is only fear in disguise, fear of your own potential, fear of stepping fully into what you're capable of. Yet, once you take that first step away, something remarkable happens. You begin to feel alive again. You feel the pulse of purpose, the spark of possibility. The road ahead may be uncertain, but it is yours. And every step you take away from the familiar brings you closer to the person you were always meant to become. Direction is more important than speed. The world often measures progress by how fast someone moves, how quickly they achieve success, how soon they reach a destination. But what good is speed if it carries you in the wrong direction? A person running in circles may appear busy, yet they remain exactly where they began. True progress has nothing to do with how fast you move. It depends entirely on whether you are moving towards something meaningful. Direction gives purpose to effort, while speed without purpose is merely motion. In our age of urgency, people are taught to chase results. They rush into action without clarity, mistaking activity for advancement. But the wise pause before they move. They seek understanding before they seek momentum. The man who knows where he is going can afford to walk slowly. He wastes no effort, he makes no false turns, and every step brings him closer to his aim. The one who rushes without direction burns his energy quickly and wonders why he feels lost. Direction begins with thought. It begins with asking yourself, what am I really trying to achieve? That simple question, answered honestly, can save years of wandering. When your mind is clear about your destination, your steps, no matter how small, carry power. A steady pace guided by purpose will always outlast frantic speed guided by confusion. The man who takes one thoughtful step forward each day will reach a place no hurried wanderer ever could. The problem is that most people are afraid of stillness. They think if they slow down, they'll fall behind. But stillness is not stagnation. It's alignment. It's the moment when you stop running long enough to make sure you're running the right way. A ship's captain would never sail full speed without a compass, yet that's how many people live. They fill their lives with movement, noise, and urgency, all while drifting farther from their true calling. The wise, however, check their bearings often. They make sure their course matches their purpose, even if it means moving slower than the crowd. Direction requires patience. It asks you to resist the temptation of shortcuts, to ignore the pressure of comparison, to stay faithful to your path even when progress feels invisible. But that patience builds endurance. It builds wisdom. The man who moves slowly with intention is never lost. And though the world may overlook him at first, time always reveals his strength. Because while others tire from chasing every new opportunity, he moves with calm certainty toward one goal that matters. Speed impresses people for a moment, direction changes a life forever. Every great achievement, every enduring success, was built not through haste but through deliberate steps taken with clarity and purpose. Once you know your direction, the pace becomes irrelevant. Each day becomes progress. Each decision becomes power. And though the journey may be long, you can walk it with peace, knowing every step is taking you exactly where you are meant to go. Those who walk alone walk the path that others will one day follow. Solitude is not weakness. It is preparation. Every pioneer, every innovator, every person who changed the world started their journey in isolation. They faced doubt, skepticism, and often ridicule. And yet they pressed forward, guided not by the cheers of the crowd, but by the quiet conviction within. Walking alone is not about seeking recognition. It is about being faithful to a vision that only you can see, and in that faith, you develop a strength that will eventually inspire others to follow. The path of solitude is difficult because it tests you at every turn. There is no immediate validation, no constant encouragement, no audience to applaud your courage. You must rely entirely on yourself, on your own judgment, on your own resilience. And it is in these moments of trial that character is built. When you choose to walk alone, you learn self-reliance, discipline, and perseverance. You discover the depth of your own abilities and the power of your own determination. These are the traits that no crowd can teach and no shortcut can replace. History is full of those who walked alone long before anyone understood their purpose. The scientist in a lonely laboratory, the writer in a small room filled with crumpled pages, the leader who stood against popular opinion, all of them were alone in their struggle. And yet, because they persisted, because they trusted the vision that others could not yet see, they became the examples others would one day emulate. The path you walk in solitude may seem unnoticed now, but time has a way of revealing the importance of those who dared to go forward without guidance or approval. Walking alone sharpens focus. The distractions of the crowd, its opinions, its demands, its judgments, fade when you travel in solitude. You are free to listen to your own thoughts, to follow your own instincts, to refine your own goals. You learn to trust yourself in ways that are impossible when relying on constant feedback from others. Confidence grows, clarity emerges, and purpose is strengthened. Solitude is the crucible in which leaders are formed, thinkers are refined, and visionaries are made. There is a certain courage required to walk alone, because it means moving forward without immediate assurance of success. It means trusting that your steps, though unseen and sometimes uncertain, are guided by a direction that is true. And it is this courage that others will eventually recognize. People are drawn to strength, to conviction, to those who have endured hardship without losing their focus. The individual who walks alone today sets the stage for the movements of tomorrow, providing a quiet but unshakable example of what is possible when one refuses to follow the crowd. Those who walk alone are not isolated by weakness. They are pioneers of their own destiny. Their journey is both a test and a gift, shaping them into people capable of leading, inspiring, and transforming the lives of others. The path may be lonely, the nights may be long, and the trials may seem endless, but in every step taken alone, the foundation for greatness is being built, and the footsteps you leave behind will one day guide those who come after you. Here's how you build your direction first. Define your why. Write it down. Let it guide you like a compass. Second, guard your time like treasure, because that's what it is. Third, listen to your intuition more than to opinions. Opinions change with the wind. Intuition follows the truth. Fourth, stay consistent. Even when motivation fades, discipline keeps you moving. And finally, celebrate progress quietly. The loudest victories are often the ones won in silence. Every generation needs those who walk alone, because they become the lights that guide the rest. When you walk alone with purpose, you become an example of courage, proof that direction matters more than popularity. So tonight, as you look ahead into your own path, remember this: it's not the crowd that determines your destiny. It's the courage to keep walking when no one walks beside you. Start today. Take one bold step toward your vision, no matter how small, no matter who sees it. Begin walking with intention. For the road may be lonely, but it leads exactly where you are meant to go. And one day, the world will thank you for having the courage to walk it alone.